everybody starts this. Oh, yeah. Most of all rise, please. Mr. Hancock, would you lead us in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Purdue, would you lead us in prayer, please? Dear Heavenly Father, look over us tonight as we look at special things that we need to talk about for our city. And please watch over our families, all of our police officers, and all city employees. In Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, roll call, please.
Mike Duffy.
Present.
Jeff Hancock.
Present.
Jerry Walden.
Here.
Aaron Dickens.
Here.
Mark Coker.
Here.
Flip Purdue.
Here.
Rex McIntosh.
Here. Approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. Any petitions or is it motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Second. Then moved and seconded. Roll call vote.
Mike Duffy.
Aye.
Jeff Hancock.
Aye.
Jerry Walden. Aaron Dickens.
Aye.
Mark Coker.
Aye.
Flip Purdue.
Aye.
Rex McIntosh.
Aye. Now we're approval of and or additions to the agendas. Anybody have anything that they want to add to the agenda we might need to vote on tonight? Okay, hearing none, we'll consider the agenda approved. Public comments and special presentations. So if anybody from the public would like to speak, please come forward. Okay, seeing none, hearing none, we'll move on to committee and council reports. Mr. Guffey.
Property, the old Firestone. Can we do something with that, mow it? Maybe knock some of that off the ends. Just be a good neighbor.
Well, we built it once this year and we're in process of it's sold. And we're going through that process right now.
Least,
The least.
yeah.
Is that for the truck,
Rail
spur?
Yeah,
So are they to take care of,
they are.
who isn't?
Somebody out of Cincinnati that runs a railroad.
Who suggested?
Yeah, the issue that's being held up is they're trying to get approval from the EPA for what they want to do. And so that's taking, with any federal agency, it takes a little while sometimes to get that done. So that's kind of why there's been a delay, is that they're waiting on getting some feedback from the EPA to make sure they don't run afoul of restrictions on the use of property.
Just the brush and all that stuff over the field.
I'll say something to them.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Hancock.
I'd like to see Mike after the council meeting just for a minute.
Okay,
That's all.
Mr. Walden.
I had a busy 2 weeks with different meetings, and I sent a couple emails out to everyone, so just give a briefing on that and make some of my own suggestions, what I'd like for you to consider. First of all, gave each of you a commemorative pin from the 1200 Majors Little League State Championships that was held here in Newcastle last week. Don't know how many of you went down by the facilities while that was going on, but I can tell you the championship game, if they would have sold tickets, they could have kept the league running for about 10 years. I think it was packed. But President Steve Pass and the board wanted me to get these to you. Wanted to express his thanks, Mr. Mayor, for all that you did, and your council for getting the sidewalks taken care of, and all the other work that was done. So I'm just passing that on from Steve. So if you've seen need to pat him on the back and all of his volunteers from the Newcastle Little League Board, because they put a bunch of time in there. And the facilities was great. The visitors to our city had nothing but great things to say. I purposely went around and talked with the different teams, and nothing but good things. So he'd be proud of that fact, Mr. Brown, Mr. Pick, all the rest of the council. Said something out about Land Bank nominee, Zach Bertram. That will be our final spot. That is a nomination that we have to fill for the Land Bank. I am the one who can't believe it took so long for me to think of him, but I'd like to put his name forth to fill that last position on the Land Bank.
We'll take that as an official nomination. I'll second it. And then, is there any discussion with that?
Did he say yes? Yeah.
Public comment has already passed. Okay, let's take a roll call vote on that.
Mike Duffy.
Aye.
Jeff Hancock.
Aye.
Jerry Walden.
Aye.
Aaron Dickens.
Aye.
Mark Hogan.
Aye.
Lynn Purdue.
Aye.
Rex Beckendall.
Aye. Okay.
Welcome, Zach, and thank you.
Thanks for serving.
Probably go with B-Rap here first. I was hoping Carrie,
Yes?
do you mind speaking about it?
No, except I didn't bring anything.
That's okay, just round it out, and I'll add to it what I think needs to be said.
Okay. Well, I think everybody knows about the Building Renovation Assistance Program. We awarded money to 12 grantees, all downtown, obviously, and we're really excited about some of the projects have already started. The Courier Times has been painted, and the coffee shop, there's a soft opening set for the end of August. I think. That might be a secret. I don't know. What else, Jerry? What can I tell him? We had a great time. I mean, we worked well together as a team, finally. Yes?
Yes,
Yes.
and I really think for what was put together in that amount of time and what was accomplished during that amount of time, there were a lot of discussions, some hard discussions, but it all turned out really well, I think, and we're not naive. We know there's some things that we're going to improve on, hopefully next year to get this again. But we are having 5 roofs being repaired, replaced. And in my thought of mine, Dave, you can help me out on this. We fix the roofs, we don't have to worry so much about the interior and exterior. For those building owners getting help with fixing the roofs, that means we're going to be able to do some neat things on the inside too. So I think that's a big deal. I really do. Going through this, we were able to save some money through those roof repairs and apply it to a couple of other projects. It was just a work in progress. Kind of like the blind leading the blind at first, but the total end package, I think we're already seeing some results from it. And that's what's really good about it. So I'm very proud of Carrie and her leadership. I'd hate to think the amount of time she put into this. So kudos to you.
Oh, thanks. Well, Main Street's grateful to the city council and to RDC, and I think the impact is $1.2 million $800,000 in private investment, and then $389,000 in public investment, or government investment. So we're excited about what that's going to do for our downtown. So thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. I mean, you guys did fantastic, really, for going from, when I say this, it's not an insult, but going from a group of people that really did not initially have a clue where they were going to what you ended up with was phenomenal. I mean, really, honestly.
No one knew how true it was.
But you guys did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Kind of leading into that, I sent some information on the roofs of the city properties there on the block. looking over those numbers, you basically had three choices there on the quality of the roof and the guarantee of roofs. Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you had a chance to look over that.
Yeah, I looked at it, but that one particular roof is probably about fourth on the Richter scale. There's three that's in a lot worse shape than what that one is, so.
But
City owned? You mean three of those roofs are within that five?
No,
Three roofs.
you're sitting under one of the roofs, that's one of the worst one.
Well, it's neat to know that, because we can do something about that.
and what I'm going to suggest is you can take this for what it's worth. You have those figures now, and we have a contractor who's taking the time and put that time in to get some figures out to us. But I'd like to suggest, Mr. Mayor, you and the Finance Committee maybe sit down with the contractor, because Mr. Brown really feels that a better deal could be made. Maybe we can get this one taken care of too, Mr. Mayor. If it's in that bad a shape, I really think we need to look at that. And my second round of thought is, I think the Murphy building itself and the senior facility itself is something I'd like to see us keep control of. But the old Mariana property, probably ought to look at unloading that. And my way of thinking, whatever we make off of that, we can apply that what we put into it, and hopefully take care of the biggest portion of the repair needs for us. Joel, I don't know how that works.
Well, I think it's owned by the RDC.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Is it really?
It is.
And I think that, the Ferveran may have part of that.
They bought part of it.
Already sold part of it.
Okay, so that's something that I'm not aware of, so it'd be good for you guys to sit down and talk with me.
But you can ask questions about that at any time.
Okay, so that's just my line of thought. Any words of advice from the rest of it?
I mean, ultimately, I know the senior center would love to have a more accessible building for their clientele. And if the city can partner with ICAP to make that happen, that'd be incredible. And then I think that's a building that we need to off and get into private hands, because that is some prime real estate for some retail.
So that's a discussion that we need to have. And I think it'd be a great discussion.
Senior
Better
center
if you
needs,
haven't been involved down there in the Finance Committee, Mr. Mayor, and you and Dave.
They need a standalone building.
they need good parking.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's really,
And
it's not
space.
anywhere down there that we get them good parking.
But we'll talk about that, Mayor and Finance Committee meeting, and then we can get together and talk about roofs and everything.
The good thing is we have a starting point. That's
there's good numbers there to.
All right, with that, went to the Eastern Indiana Regional meeting, and honestly, I'm a little disappointed with the county's representation. They haven't been represented in the last three meetings. And to me, I think we as a community get a whole lot out of this, and I'm going to tell you why from this last meeting. The region leadership went to a meeting with NDOT, and Mr. Mayor, you attended that with them. And there are basically four projects that they discussed at this meeting. One was widening of I-70 from Post Road to the Ohio state line from 2 lanes to 3 lanes. It means it's going to pass through Henry County. It's going to be an expansion of an interstate, which means that we have a great opportunity. That gave me a lot of hope about what I've been talking about for the last 5 years with an exchange of State Road 103. If you've been over that overpass, rebar showing through, not only the half-inch, but the 1-inch rebar. They're going to have to replace that. With this expansion, they're going to have to do work on that. And the cost of putting in an exchange there at that spot is going to be a drop in the bucket to that total project's cost. So that's another opportunity for us to expand. Now, how are we going to expand? I've talked about this with the mayor, I've talked about it with Corey Murphy. biggest advantage that we have access to an interstate. And it's 3.5 miles away. State Road 3 is great. If we could add State Road 103 and those properties between 500 and I-70 and 3 and 103, topography of that ground is level. There's not much to do with construction there. It could be residential developments, and I think that's mainly what it created. There's also opportunities for commercial development. I can't help but think we're looking at the Goose's Golden Egg with this. We probably need to start thinking, this is a 5 to 10 year project, Mr. Mayor. I think as a council, we need to start thinking about how are we going to expand our services to where it be greatest used. Do we want to go ahead and send water and sewage opportunities out like we did with White Estates? The county could have never done this the way it was accomplished. How far do we want to extend it? Louisville's already brought water out to Tri-High, which is about a mile and a half away from that overpass. What investments do we want to do? Are there people out in the community who want to develop to the west of us, to the south of us? How are we going to meet those needs? So we need to get ahead of this. We really need to start thinking about it. I've talked about this with the mayor, and I like his ideas. It's the same ideas I basically had too, because of how it worked out at once. We need to start thinking about that. So that's what I'm going to ask you to do, and just put some real thought into it. Drive out around the areas and look at what's going on. There's already some things started. If you go west and look at the communities building up, that's what's going to cause Nicetown to expand now, because they're sending out water and sewage to I-70. And that's, when you look at the New Lisbon exit, that's exactly why it has not gone any further than what it has. Because it had water and sewage out there. It's going to come. And when it comes, is it 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road? We really need to take that into consideration. If it happens, I may never see the fruits of it. That's okay, because I believe in this project. I believe in it wholeheartedly. That's why I've been pushing for it. That's why I've met with the governor's office. I met with our congressional representation. It's that important to me, because I think it's good for our community. I actually think it's going to be great for our community and the opportunities that it can lead into for us. So just start thinking about that. Like I said, we have the backing of the region. They are behind this 100%. We're also looking at the possibility of expanding State Road 3 to 4 lanes where possible. That's one of the projects that we talked to NDOT about. Which means we have basically 4 lanes connecting I-74 to I-70. That's what that means. And back when Honda came, that's what Governor Daniels promised to happen. The other project out of that, the 4th one, was straightening out State Road 1 from basically Cambridge City to Connersville. So that's the 4 that they presented to IDOT. Honestly, the expansion of the I-70 was their top priority, and then the exchange of 103 was their second most important. So, Mr. Mayor, you want to add anything to that since you were at me? And I can tell you, all the other regions had one representation or one representative there. We had 4, correct? Mayor of Rushville, Mayor York, and then 2 representatives from the Eastern Indiana region. So, and then you like that.
The widening of 70 is the state, and that is in their plans. It will be a 6 to 10 year plan, that they are planning on making it 6 lanes from Mount Comfort Road all the way to the Ohio line. So that, and automatically, they've got to tear that whole interchange or that whole bridge down. Because there's not enough lanes there. So they got to build it back. You know, so that's prime time. Out of all four of the projects, ours would probably be the most reasonable financially for them to encounter. So, not picking on your district, but if Grady and Crown and could just go straight out to 18th Street to 103, look at all the downtown Crown trucks, it wouldn't be coming down Broad Street, or wouldn't be coming.
How many traffic lights would we save?
Yeah, yeah.
Too soon.
So, I mean, it would help in a lot of different ways, a lot of different ways. So, we're gonna stay on that.
I appreciate that. And we'll let you know, I appreciate you doing that. I mean, that's awfully important to me. And last thing that I had, Dave, did you give us an update on the Washington Street, Michigan?
Likens Construction, as you guys know, they had 14th Street closed between Michigan and Washington. That's now open. It's gravel. It's not the best, but now you can get through there. That is a thoroughfare. They're actually going to get into 16th Street starting tomorrow morning in the intersection of 16th and Washington. So you probably won't be able to get from Washington to the hospital coming from the east and jumping on 16th and going north. So if you're coming from 18th, you'll have to, if you need to get to the hospital, you have to go over to 20th and go in the back way, or you'll have to get over to 14th now to travel north. But 14th Street is open now. I told them to keep it cleaned up all week because that's going to be where a lot of the traffic is going to be diverted. And they're going to try in the next couple or 3 weeks to get some asphalt on 14th. I don't know if it'll be the permanent, but at least get it black where we're not driving over gravel. We're having to deal with gravel all week. So that's kind of where we're at. Likens will be closing the intersection of North 16th, which is 103, and Washington tomorrow for the rest of the week.
Any questions on that? Thanks, Dave. That's all I have.
Mr. Dickens?
I think the only thing I had, I thought there was one other thing, but my old age, I'm losing it. Talked with a highly referred Mason beginning of last week, just to get some ideas on the Murphy Building and the Senior Center, since tag along to that, taking care of our own city-owned buildings. Got a rough estimate. I actually just talked to him on the way here, and I'm supposed to talk to him tomorrow to get that firmed up. But looking at about $150,000 for tuck pointing what would be the north side of the Murphy Building and the west side of the Murphy Building and the Senior Center. The way that he does it, they're not just patching it in on top of what's there. They cut out around each brick. They mix the mortar to the period of the building, because that's why if you look on the north side of the building, there's a patch there that almost was repaired. Looks like the mortar was too hard for 1800s brick. That's why they're all getting crushed. So it sounds really good. I know that's a pretty hefty price tag. When you talk about not having to worry about that again for 50 plus years. And not having to paint every 4 to 5 years. And when you paint it, you're really just sticking a great value Band-Aid on it because you're covering up issues and you're gonna have to do it again in another 4 or 5 years. So just on the topic that, Councilman Walden brought up, just think about that. The Finance Committee can discuss that. If anybody has any questions or comments now or later, that's fine too. So. I think that's all I have.
Mr. Coker?
I have nothing.
The only thing I have to bring up, I think all of you got the email that I forwarded from Mr. Burgum about the request for $25,000 where he made for tree removal. Does anybody have any comments or thoughts on that? Does anybody think we want to proceed with that? Just want to throw it out there so there can be discussion. Is there discussion?
It's like necessary maintenance.
Yeah, it has to be
So,
Well, I know, but,
Safety factor.
right, I just want to see how everybody felt. Next, you'll have Mr. Harvey write up a resolution for next meeting. Is there, do we have opposition to that? Okay, we'll do that for us. That's it, Your Honor. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank Chief.
School starts Wednesday. A lot of extra patrol out, monitoring traffic. So there'll be speeding in the school zones. So we're gonna inform all officers to be very proactive. We'll have extra patrol for the first 3 days of school. There is a new traffic pattern at the middle school that I think the school put out on the website. That's all I got.
Want to say anything about the full-time staff that we'll have?
We do have a full-time SRO this year. Their first go at it. Hopefully, we'll have more in the future, depending on what kind of federal money the school corporation can get. Obviously, the superintendent would like to have one in every school. It's impossible right now, based on both of our budgets right now. But that's the goal, is for them to obtain enough money from the federal government to have an SRO full-time in each of the schools.
The school situation that happened down in Texas, our police department has a vehicle that I assure you, we've assured the school that it wouldn't take an hour to get inside with a door at the school with vehicles that we have. Matt has worked with the school a great deal on getting this situation worked out, that we have full-time coverage and it's going to grow in the future. But I would say in the last 2 years, things have really changed. 12 years ago, it's not a shock. It's nobody should be surprised. We've probably got as good as negotiators as anybody has anywhere. Actually, Jerry, I remember your wife 11 years ago, laid on the floor for almost 2 straight hours and doing a reenactment in high school. Well, it's not about negotiations today. So, dads and parents better be knowing what their kids are doing, because it's not about negotiations and getting things worked out. It's eliminating a shooter or stabbing or something. So I'm very proud with all the time that our police department has worked with the school, and it's going to be ongoing. But we're very proactive in that, and hope that we don't ever get put to the test. But it's real different than it was 10 years ago, and we're trying to stay ahead of it. And I feel like we've worked hard to try to make sure that that's happened to this point. And we're looking at finances to make sure that it improves in the future. So thanks for all that effort you put into that. Anything, Chief? Chief? Mike? Council?
I don't have anything.
Brendan? Ken? Mike? Great. Doug? Dougie? Sorry about that. Great. What I call it? Mike? Sorry, I was looking at Mike. Anything to leave? You're our lead, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just a couple things that I wanted to talk about tonight. We've kind of had some issues at 1400 Plaza with people overextending their stay, like overnight. And I'd like to talk to council a little bit about maybe putting some no loitering and no smoking signs up in a public place. When people come to a concert and smoke underneath the yellow tarps, the smoke currently doesn't go away, and then they throw their cigarette butts down on the concrete. But I want to give the police department some more teeth to ask loiterers to leave, and I don't know if that's a time but certainly when you find somebody there at 5:30, 6 o'clock next morning. It's going a bit beyond. 2 weeks ago, we had a person there that was there all night long, sleeping underneath one of the tables, and had thrown up 2 or 3 times. And EMS had to make a run early in the morning to take him to the hospital. So I would like some discussion from the council about what your thoughts are on, at least at 1400 Plaza, we have no signage about anything, about no loitering and no smoking in the public place.
Mayor, I had a phone call with problems like that also. They also mentioned the public library, that there's nothing we can do since they have their own board. But behind the arts park, you're spending the night experience and all that. I don't know if we have any say so there, since we have a board or not, but I guess some of the homeless are living back down there.
So I think if we set an example at the plaza, then that would be something that they could feed off of.
I think there's a 2-3 block area that's really the problem right in that area.
Well, do we have curfew set up in our parks?
Yes.
Dusk to dawn, did you say, Patty, or
Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah.
Dusk to dawn. But they abuse that a lot. That's abused every night.
I'll make a motion that whatever 1400 needs, let it go to the board of works, and the signage will come out of Riverwood.
I'll
second that.
I'll second.
Have to change the ordinance, so you'll have to bring the ordinance.
Well, if
back
it's
as
an
far
ordinance,
as-
if it's just
As far as a
signage.
fine, if we want to put.
If it's a fine, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
If you want to put
that's,
some teeth in it, you're gonna have to do
Okay.
something to somebody, I would think.
Okay, well, let's, I'll rescind that, and let's, let, council come up with an ordinance that the board of works feels need.
Yeah, second that.
Well, and I also, I mean, this has been a discussion with one of my main constituents that shares an address with me, actually. You're gonna accomplish what you're wanting to do, but you're not gonna solve the problem, because I think homelessness in our community has grown to be a bigger problem than anybody realizes. Had this conversation with Mr. Wardlow, and you know, again, there's only so much that we can do, and I know that we have services out there. So I'm not sure what the missing link is. I'm just saying they're not loitering because they don't have anywhere to go. They're not going to pay a fine because they don't have a job. They are going to just end up in the back of our office behind the town tavern on the bench of a hospital. So, you know, while I think this is good because you're going to accomplish what, you know, the short-sighted problem is, I think we need to start bringing some people together to tackle a bigger issue. And I think the city can be a leader in that, especially with the leadership of, you know, our emergency services, administration, everything.
Do any of the local churches have programs?
Sure. Yeah.
Well,
Well,
we've got a guest house,
Right.
help center,
And that's what I'm saying. I mean,
they got a
you can't make anybody
guest house.
go there. So I don't know what
But they
the
got,
answer
a lot of
is.
those places, if they do drugs or things like that, they won't let them stay there.
Right.
Yeah.
That's correct. Well, I just wanted to make sure that this wasn't going to be like. Yeah.
but the person that the first aid unit took to the hospital had an address on South Main Street. So he chose
Yeah.
to be there and not to be at home.
Yeah.
And Matt, I mean, how many times do you guys offer a ride to a facility and have taken them, and with an hour, they leave?
Right.
It happens all the time. We offer a lot of people that just want to be homeless. They don't want any help. That's probably the biggest issue we have. So you're always afraid that they're going to become a nuisance or a business or whatever. We try to educate them on, you know, don't be camping out in front of businesses, camping out in the park. But there are a lot of people that are homeless, and that's just how they want to be.
I've had other citizens to say that they've taken them blankets, coats, pants, clothing, coats, and yeah, and they just had no interest. So, you know, I don't know, Aaron. I don't know if we're going to conquer.
Right, yeah, no, I get it.
Situation.
Well, and like Coger said, let's look at the ordinance next meeting or amend it to add a fine, and then we'll get signage ordered.
I'd just like to give the police, you know, some direction on what we would like to happen here. So,
Okay, well, we've got a motion and a second, so we'll take a roll call vote.
Mike Duffy.
Aye.
Jeff Hancock. Jerry Walden. Aaron Pickett.
Aye.
Mark Hover.
Aye.
Lynn Purdue.
Aye.
Rex Beckman.
Aye. Okay, then the last thing that I have is, Jerry, I've got some plans to expand city utilities west, the water tower west of town, and expand the other utilities south of town. So we've got pricing on that a couple of years ago, which means absolutely nothing today. So we're going to resurrect that, because it's a simple fact that if Newcastle and Henry County grows, it's going to be literally from expanding utilities. We need that to happen. So that's all that I had.
Okay, well, we'll move on. We have, under unfinished business, does anybody want to discuss stop signs or stop lights? No. Nobody wants to discuss, okay.
I thought that was after school started.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to give everybody an opportunity.
Well, I will say that somebody from the county sent us an email.
About possible getting us that.
Well, I called that company that he suggested, and they're going to come to town and give us some advice. So
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
we've already got in touch with them about that, but I told them that we'll wait till after school started. We weren't in a urgent rush.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Now we'll move on to resolutions. Number 08012022-1, authorizing the allocations of coronavirus local funds for the provision of specified government services and further amending the city's written plan for expenditure. Now therefore be resolved by the Common Council of the City of Newcastle, Indiana as follows. Number one, the Common Council hereby allocates a sum of up to $3,500 for the purchase of new audio-visual equipment for use in the City Council chambers. Two, the written fiscal plan for the expenditure of revenue received from the coronavirus local fiscal recovery fund is attached hereto as Exhibit A, and each such expenditure is allocated to the replacement of lost revenue. The remaining sums received by the City of Newcastle through the coronavirus local fiscal recovery fund will be utilized for any of the purposes set forth in 42 USC 803C. The written plan for expenditure will be amended from time to time as determined by the Common Council in advance of any other expenditures. Did want to say, because I think somebody asked this, when we allocate $3,500, that does not mean that every dime of that $3,500 is going to get spent. And all the bills are paid out of the clerk's office. So let's say $3,000 is spent, the other $500 remains in the ARP funds. This just allows us to make sure that we have enough there. So all of a sudden, if it's $3,000 and $2.07, we don't have to come back and redo and vote on $2.07. So, I move we pass this resolution.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
What all is this giving us?
Well, and I mean, right now they don't have it in stock, so I got to look at other brands. But you're talking microphones, you're talking soundboard, cables. We've discussed like a 70-inch TV monitor in place of the overhead projector, because you want to turn lights off, and it'd be easier, as well as a monitor out here for the public to see. So that when somebody has a presentation or there's an addendum or whatever exhibit. So that's what, right now, the audio on this is terrible, and everybody will, they'll tell me because that's who they come to, but it's terrible because this equipment from 1983 does not work well with that. So, and again, I want to stress that, I'm donating the time and putting this all together. So we're not, funding a company to come in and do this. I'm trying to get this done affordably so that there is,
Every time somebody brings in a presentation, that's what those two hooks right there are for, but it usually ends up on the desk here.
Yeah.
We're way behind.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, a good enough projector for what you would need it for You're gonna probably save money on TV.
We always don't have the right cord or don't have some kind of right hookup.
We'll get it taken care of and get you guys all trained.
Sounds good.
All
I think he was looking at me and you, maybe.
Yeah.
The old guys. Okay, sorry, Ray, I didn't mean to leave you. All right, we do have a motion and a second, so let's have a roll call vote.
Mike Duffy.
Aye.
Jeff Hancock.
Aye.
Jerry Walden.
Aye.
Aaron Dickens.
Aye.
Mark Hoder.
Aye.
Cliff Purdue.
Aye.
Rex Beckman.
Aye. Okay, resolution carries 7-0. Next in ordinance, we have third reading of ordinance number 3883, regulating the number of vehicles that may be parked on city streets by a common owner or by occupants of the same household. I would move we pass that on third reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Mike Duffy.
Aye.
Jeff Hancock.
Aye.
Jerry Walden.
Aye.
Aaron Dickens.
Aye.
Mark Hoder.
Aye.
Cliff Purdue.
Aye.
Rex Beckman.
Aye. 3883 passes 7-0. Our next ordinance is first reading, ordinance 3885, amending zoning districts. Now, if I do this wrong, Mr. Herman, you just stop me and.
Sure.
Okay.
And you don't need to read the legal
That's what I was,
descriptions or anything like that.
that's what I was gonna
Yeah.
summarize that.
I think you could probably just summarize it that it would be
The corner of Broad and 11th.
Broad and 11th, yeah, and it would be from R3 to C1 with the commitment that the real estate can't be used as a liquor store.
Okay, I think you all heard that, so I don't know if I need to read that. But basically, the planning commission voted on this and sent it to us. And we're amending the plan to zone that area from R3 to C1 with the commitment that the real estate can't be used as a liquor store. There were a couple of neighbors concerned about that. There are other things that neighbors were concerned about that are not even allowed to happen on that property. For example, a gas station can't happen there because of wellheads and things like that. So anyway, the big concern was the liquor store, and the owner of the property was more than happy to agree that that was okay. Basically, it's the corner of Broad and 11th, and I would move that we pass this ordinance on first reading.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Mike Duffy.
Aye.
Jeff Hancock.
Aye.
Jerry Walden.
Aye.
Aaron Dickens.
Aye.
Mark Hoder.
Aye.
Cliff Purdue.
Aye.
Rex Beckman.
Aye. That concludes.
Southwest corner.
Okay, that concludes our, Mr. Walton.
Seeing the comprehensive plan term here, I forgot to discuss the comprehensive plan project form that I sent out to everyone. And that's just for us to consider any project to turn into the Eastern Indiana Regional Commission for their comprehensive plan that they're putting together for the Tony region. So, Rex, you think I ought to start out with the finance committee and the mayor, or what?
Well, I think we can start out with maybe the mayor.
You guys.
Yeah, what to talk about, but I think, I don't know.
I apologize.
I think the mayor has projects probably, and I'm sure he's got a list of projects.
And it's a real simple thing. So
Yeah, it was.
There's not much in it.
So, yeah, we'll do that. Okay, well, no more business. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, adjourn.
Don't take off.
Oh, you're much better.